worship to the Lord this morning. We'll be on page 176. Page 176, there's power in the blood. Would you be free from your burden of sin? Would you be free from your burden of sin? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Would your evil a victory win? There's wonderful power in the blood. There's power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There's power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. Would you be free from your passion and pride? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. From your cleansing to Calvary's fire, there's wonderful power in the blood. There's power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There's power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. Would you be whiter, much whiter than snow? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Life-giving gold, there's wonderful power in the blood. There's power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There's power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. Would you be service for Jesus your King? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Would you live daily His praises to sing? There's wonderful power in the blood. There's power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There's power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. Good singing this morning. Y'all may be seated. Brother Mike, good morning.
Good morning, brother.
See you this morning.
Good to have you back. Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, have a seat. You can turn over to the book of Joel. Well, we got it decorated in here, don't we? Now, I don't usually get finished early, but if I happen to, we'll just come up here and have us a little fellowship up here. Right? We got, and any of you feel like you're going to fall asleep, there's some caffeinated, there's Dr. Pepper and stuff to keep you awake, and got snacks. So if anybody gets hungry during the lesson, if I go on too long and get a little bit hungry, well, there's some.
You wore a big coat.
Yeah.
You can put on that under.
So, well, anyway, as you know, we start the Kids Crusade tomorrow night, and so there'll be a lot of kids that would be disappointed if the senior adults got up here and ate all their prizes, but we will have a good crowd, so pray for them, and on through the week, some adults will come and pray for them as well, and of course the gospel will go out to a lot of people, so it's a lot of effort goes in here, and you saw everything outside as well, and so just pray for the week if you would. I'll be back next week, but I will be this week at a Jehovah Jireh board meeting, and we have some decisions to make too, and it's our church supports Jehovah Jireh Foundation, and we try to help churches get their first sanctuary building, and so we'll make several grants this week as well. So we got a lot going on. So anyway, we're in the book of Joel. Last week I said that we're going. I talked about the sheep and goat. Let me just read the first 3 verses there, and then I'll go into that. For behold, in the days, this is Joel chapter 3, verse 1. For behold, in those days and in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. They have cast lots for my people and have given a boy for a harlot and sold a girl for wine, that they might drink. And of course, this is actually some verses describing the judgment of the sheep and goats. So we spent all last week talking about the judgment of the Gentile nations on how they treated Israel, because there was going to be some that would be helpful to Israel during the time of great tribulation, during the time of Jacob's trouble. And we talked about all that last week, and I don't really have time to go through it again, except to say that that's what this is about. And then I was going to move, and I will next week move. I told you I would this week, and I'm going to put it off for a week, but move also into Matthew 25, same chapter, up a little bit, when the Lord deals with Israel. And so he doesn't just deal with the Gentiles, but he deals with Israel as well. So he separates the sheep and goats on the Gentile side, and we're going to talk about then next week the separation of Israel. It goes right with it. However, and I knew our president was going to Israel this week, and but I thought, well, because I'd read all the reports and I didn't really think too much was going on, and it turns out, and in our news media, you won't see too much, haven't seen too much, but in many places I looked, Jerusalem Post, the Times of Israel, Israel Hayom, quite other places, there's a lot has been talked about. And so I want to go through some verses here in Joel and show you some things. And then I'm going to move to the slides, and we're going to talk about some things that in fact happened this week that I think go along, in fact, with this. In fact, when the last three words there of chapter 3, verse 2, when the Lord says they parted my land, that, in fact, is what went on this week. Now, I'm not saying it got parted, but I am saying that it wasn't in any of the preview reports of what was supposed to happen, and yet all they talked about, except at least in the first, when they're in the, in Israel and Jordan and so forth, was dividing up Israel's land. That's not all they talked about, but it's much of it. And I'm going to talk to you about some things and go through that. But I also, since we're in this, and I just wanted to finish this and show that the Lord himself is not happy when somebody else pushes Israel around. And so we're going to talk about that. Now, this chapter bleeds on into the Battle of Armageddon. So this third chapter, the whole book of Joel is about the coming of the Lord, the second coming of the Lord, and he takes a few verses there to point out the judgment to the for Israel upon the Gentiles, which we talked about last week. But as we move ahead now, he's going to move into the Battle of Armageddon, which actually occurs first. But the Lord, there's a sequence that he gives us here for some reasons. But let's pick up in verse 4. Chapter 3, verse 4, yea, and I'm going to go fairly quickly through the remainder of this chapter. Yea, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, and all the coast of Palestine? Will you render me a recompense? And if you recompense me, swiftly and speedily will I return your recompense upon your own head. The word recompense means compensate. It's used 3 times there, and so if you don't kind of get that, it's difficult to understand that verse. But Tyre and Sidon are cities on the coast north. They're Gentile cities north of Israel. And Palestine, now that's an interesting word there. I've got it underlined in my Bible. This is a offshoot here. I've heard many people say, well, who are the Palestinians, or the word Palestine's not even in the Bible. Well, it is in the Bible. It's right there. And so if anybody ever says that, well, just remember, hey, in Joel chapter 3 is where we find the Palestinians or the Palestine. And here it specifically refers to the Philistines. And later on, he's going to talk about Edom. And a lot of people think that today's Palestinians are actually, because there's not a nation called the Philistines, and a lot of people think that it was the Edomites, and so that's Esau, Jacob and Esau. Jacob's name was changed to Israel. Esau his land was called Edom. And a lot of people think the Palestinians are descendants of Edom. There's some reasons for that. I don't know, but the Lord is calling out here some non-Jewish nations, Gentile nations, that he's specifically north and south of Israel. And I'm going to talk about this Gaza Strip later on, which really is this kind of same, more or less that same geography. And so the Lord says this, look what you've done to Israel, and I'm wondering, are you going to give me some payback for that? Are you going to recompense that? Are you going to compensate for the damage you have done to my nation? And the Lord said, let me just tell you, I've got a little message for you. I'm about to compensate you, not you. The Lord says, I read, and sometimes I go this way. The Lord said, I'm going to compensate you for what you have done to my people. Specifically, he refers to them. Because, verse 5, you have taken my silver and my gold and have carried into your temples my goodly, pleasant things. So one thing they did is specifically the silver and gold in the temple they carried away, right? The children also of Judah, and verse 6, and of Jerusalem have you sold unto the Grecians, that you might remove them far from their border. So not only did Israel get sold through the years, and not only will they get scattered once again when the Antichrist comes, but the Lord's watching all that too. And he mentions this once again to the Greeks, or Grecians, or the Greeks, or you might say the Gentiles again. You've sold my people. You've scattered my people and sold them into the Gentile people. Behold, he says, verse 7, I will raise them out of the place whither you have sold them, and will return your recompense, your compensation upon your own head. Now I will sell your sons and your daughters into the hand of the children of Judah. And they shall sell them to the Sabaeans, and to a people far off, for the Lord hath spoken it. More or less what the Lord's saying is, the things you've done to Israel, I'm going to do to you. Now that's what if you want to just sum it up, he's saying, I'm going to compensate you in a way with the things that you have done to Israel. Now I would just point out that those that are doing these kinds of things to Israel today, God is watching that, and God, these verses stand true. God will deal with it. That's what the whole book of Joel is a prophecy. And of course, down through the years, Israel's had a lot of things happen to them, but God is talking about here his measure of recompense upon that. His compensation that he's going to get for that. Verse 9. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. Prepare war. Wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. Look at this verse. Beat your plowshares into swords, and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. There's a song about that, not exactly aligned with the context of this verse. But what the Lord is saying is he's, have you ever got involved in I'm sure none of you have, got involved in a discussion and the back and forth, you got a little heated as it went along? Have you ever seen that happen? Or I'm sure it's happened to none of you, but, that's a little bit how I see the Lord here as he's talking about this. He's not happy. He is unhappy with what has happened to Israel. And he says this, as he works himself up to this, he says, you might as well get ready for some war because I'm coming down on you. You would do well to take your agriculture instruments, like your plows and that's just the example he gives, and your pruning hooks, and turn those into weapons of war. Now, in the millennial reign, what does the Lord mention there that's going to happen? We're going to turn weapons of war into productive weapons, aren't we? Because there will be no more war, except for the big one at the end of the 1,000 years that the Lord fights. But for us, there will be no more war. It's done. You can just, if you've got it's the Lord's gun control right there. I mean, he said you might as well take that thing and do something productive with it, because you're not going to need it anymore for war. It's not going to be anymore. But here it's just exactly the opposite. He says you better take your stuff and turn it into a gun, because you're going to need it. And he says, wake up the army, get them up here. I got just enough water to help me with this. I've been doing a lot better lately, but verse 11, assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord. Let the heathen be wakened. Come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, for there will I set to judge all the heathen round about. So this is where he's given this. We talked about Jehoshaphat, the valley of Jehoshaphat last week. I think nobody's clear on where it's at, but there's a valley, Kidron Valley, there outside of Jerusalem. And I think from there north to Megiddo is what the Lord's talking about right here. And he says, let's just all meet in this valley, in the valley of Jehoshaphat. And then he says in verse 13, put in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come, get you down, for the press is full, the fats overflow, for their wickedness is great. Verse 14, multitudes. Now he's talking about the number of people that are going to be around. Multitudes in the valley of decision. For the day of the Lord, there's the phrase, the day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision. The sun and the moon shall be darkened, the stars shall withdraw their shining, the Lord also shall roar out of Zion and utter his voice from Jerusalem. The heavens and the earth shall shake, but the Lord will be the hope of his people and the strength of the children of Israel. I mean, I hope you